is what you see a lot of time in the gym. There's this natural rotation that can happen here at my pelvis. I don't want that to happen. On top of the fact,
What's up? 筋肉翻訳です。さあ今日はみんなが引っかかるダンベルローイングで背中をでかくするコツ見ていきましょう。今回はみんながやったことはあるダンベルローイングについてです。ベーシックな種目なんですが、なかなか広背筋に乗せることは難しいのではないでしょうか。でもちょっとしたコツでそれも解決できます。まずは広背筋の解剖学を見ていくと分かりやすいと思います。広背筋は背骨や骨盤から始まっていて、腕のこの辺りについています。なのでいかに腕のこの部分と背中を近づけるか、それが筋トレとして大事な要素になってきます。今回はそのコツをベンさんが教えてくれています。早速見ていきましょう。どうぞ。
So we're here with Ben Pekulski right now, and he's teaching me intra-set stretching. But before we get to that, I first want to go over mechanics. We have Melissa here. He was just showing her how to do a single dumbbell row, and I felt that I have to share this with you guys because the way he breaks down the mechanics and helps her get her lats engaged is incredible. So Ben, you got to show her exactly how you had her set up and why you had her set up that way.
Sure, no problem. Thanks, Adam. So Melissa here is going to do a one-arm dumbbell row, and setup for every exercise is going to be your number one most important aspect to making sure you're advantaging that muscle to do the greatest amount of work. So mechanically, we want her lats to be overloaded in the shortened position. So we're going to try to get her body parallel with the ground and disadvantage any other muscles from being able to move. So Melissa's going to reach out with the left hand, grab that bench. We choose to have her right leg forward because the lat has a bit of a rotational component involved, and we want to involve that. So by keeping her right leg forward, we prevent rotation at the pelvis. So we're going to lock the pelvis in place. So some of the cues that I'm going to use with Melissa here is I'm going to have her drive her leg into the floor. So if I were to push on her hip, that leg's not going to bend. That's going to give her a really sturdy base. She's also going to be driving that hand into the bench because I want to make sure she can't move up and down or forward and back. So now she's completely locked into place. So our two cues are we're going to set up and then we're going to lock it down. So she's going to lock herself in place. And then the only cue is this. Every muscle only does one thing, it shortens. So we want to think about where the insertion of that muscle is, which is somewhere here under her armpit, and then somewhere here is the origin. So all that muscle does is go further apart and come closer together. So Melissa, take those further apart for me as far as you can. So yeah, she just lengthened the muscle. And now I want you to bring them as close as you can together. Keep coming across, keep coming across, keep coming across. Good. Now let's do a few more reps. Now notice, guys, that she's not, go ahead, go down. Notice when that cue is not back. That cue is when she reaches a point where her insertion point, keep coming back, right there is in line with her rib cage. Now the cue is this way. It's not this way. So if I want to shorten my lat, I'm trying to bring those 2 points closer together. So that's an
And that's really the scapula that you're kind of rotating, right? You're asking her to do, right?
Sure.
When you say bring it closer.
Yep. So actually just bring that humerus across the body. Scapula should be coming stationary or coming across the body this way. So the lat inserts way under here on the humerus. We're going to try to bring those closer together. Go ahead.
And so what you mean by the origin and insertion too is what we're doing is we're taking that muscle through its fullest range of motion, why this is so important and why I wanted you to teach this is because this is an exercise and this is a muscle that I think people struggle with doing that.
Sure.
A lot of people have a hard time.
That's great.
Taking a bicep through full range of motion
is easy.
Pretty easy.
Yep. So most people, when they can't see it, they don't understand how it works. So one thing that I want to point out, everybody goes, why does that leg have to be forward? Let me use the bench for a sec. So if I'm doing a row with my right arm and I have my left leg forward, which is what you see a lot of time in the gym, there's this natural rotation that can happen here at my pelvis. I don't want that to happen. On top of the fact, there's a greater amount of room for force transfer. So now there's all this, my body has to stabilize my core, has to stabilize my pelvis. By putting this leg forward, now I just got to stabilize this leg. My core is going to be stationary. And then if I want to rotate, the rotation can only happen at the spine. It can't happen at the pelvis, which allows you to really lock that position in place and just pull as hard as you can and really isolate the lat contraction.
Now, what you were telling her earlier about bending her knees too, like when you talk about driving the floor, I made a comment about being able to go heavy. Now, do you recommend someone can control this weight, or what do you think about someone ripping it up? Like,
I don't think there's ever a place ripping it up in this exercise. So here's the realization. So the lat is going to be weakest in the short position. So I want to pick a weight that is challenging for me to be able to get it way back here. So whatever that happens to be for Melissa or whatever happens to be for me, the realization is that the lat is weakest here and strongest here mechanically. So as I fatigue in this shortened position, I still have a tremendous amount of ability to generate force and work down here. So my execution may look something like this. I may do my 6 to 8 reps in full range, And then as I can't continue to quite go back as far, I'm still going to continue to do the set as far as I'm able to go within that active range that I can control, rather than trying to jerk it back to a place.
Get back in that position. I want to show something that you just did, that you explain that. So when you get into this shorten right here and you're fatigued, what ends up happening is most people, they want to just complete the reps, so they rotate like you're saying.
And use other muscles.
And you're saying it's better to just shorten that range up and stay mentally focused on
what are you trying to train, right? If you're trying to train your lat, train your lat. So if I'm trying to train all these other muscles, supporting muscles that can do the same job, well, that's a different thing. If I'm trying to train my lat for hypertrophy, I only want my lat to work.
Right.
So the lat at that point can't use that weight for that full range of motion, but it can still contract, just through a progressively smaller range of motion, which is often the reality in exercise. If it's possible safely to continue a set, then you do so. It just makes sense.
さあ、いかがでしたでしょうか。ダンベルを持っている側の足を前に出して骨盤の回旋をロックする。腕をベンチ台に押し付けて体全体が動かないように固定をする。とのことでした。ダンベルローは重いものでも勢いをつけて上げてネガティブを効かせるという方法もあります。でも収縮もコントロールできた上で行うことでより筋肥大のためのトレーニングにもできるということですね。これが上手にできてくると勢いをつけた時の収縮時もしっかりと筋肉を緊張させることができるのでより効果を高めることができます。みんなはダンベルローの時どんなことを意識していますか？コメント欄で教えてください。僕はとにかく肩を下ろして後ろに肩を引いたところでどこまで肘を持ってくれるか、これを大事にしています。最後まで見ていただいてありがとうございます。感想や動画のリクエスト、チャンネル登録お待ちしています。ではまた。
I won't look back when you're around. I won't think twice when you're gone. Don't hesitate to call me back, 'cause I won't be there. I won't look back when you're around. I won't